All right, so I don't think y'all know how many times I had to re-record this video because I realized that Martin, the sitcom, is playing in the background, and I'm not trying to be flagged for anybody's copyright infringement or whatever. But I wanted to get on here to talk as quickly as possible, real briefly, about emotional eating and what it entails, and really how to combat it and how to just be mindful when, it's time to either manage the stress better or hydrate or find a healthier alternative to your emotional eating. So what is emotional eating? Usually emotional eating is tied to something that is causing you an elevated level of stress to whatever degree. And whether it be just you have to sit down and get some work done, some school work done, you've had a rough day at work. My mom was notorious for, like, if she had a long day, I just need something sweet. I'm like that too. I was like, man, I just need something sweet. Sometimes when I'm sitting at my desk and trying to crank stuff out, I gotta have, my choice is chocolate covered pretzels and a cream soda. I just gotta sit down and just gotta have something sugary to kind of help me kind of get through this emotional or this stress-filled moment. So one thing to note is that when your body is under stress, okay, it releases a couple of hormones, but one of the hormones to be mindful of, that you just need to know about, is cortisol, right? And we've all heard cortisol being so, high cortisol this and high cortisol that. And so cortisol has a couple of jobs here. What it does is that the hormone is released in addition to, Lord, brain fart, epinephrine and vasopressin, I believe. Those are going to be released during stress, but cortisol helps protect, from organ damage or tissue damage, that can be caused by just kind of extended levels of like fight or flight when you stress. So cortisol is designed to protect those. And in its protection, what it does is that it ups the body's need for glucose, essentially saying, feed me, I'm hungry, right? So in that, when when you get that urge to say, man, I need to put some food in me, that's essentially, your body's trying to respond to that, right? And so it's so important to know, cortisol, excessive amounts of cortisol released into the body just from stress, it does have long-term impact. So for example, I know it's trendworthy to talk about high cortisol this and high cortisol that. I guarantee you, talk to your physician first, get a full blood panel, but before you start trying to over medicate and over supplement yourself and waste money on supplements that you probably don't need, I guarantee you, sleep and a well-balanced diet accompanied with water and an activity kind of combat the stress will help a lot more than you trying to over supplement yourself, trying to save y'all some coins. So, but let's get into the stress part. So still on the topic of emotional eating, I want you to create a food journal, right? But before you get into the food journal, I just want you to journal, period, right? I want you to, in your journal, outline your day, outline, what are some things that just really bothered you? What was something that stressed you out? What was something that, that you're still holding on to that really upset you? What is something that what is hurting? One of the trends that I have noticed a long time ago, even when I was in grad school, is that individuals that are on the show with Dr. Nuzaldin, with My 600 Pound Life, they have something in common. They all have had a traumatic event occur, okay? And in that traumatic event, our bodies are gonna respond to, either fight or flight. It's gonna, and in addition to the cortisol, it's gonna be constantly released and to constantly protect the body from excessive levels of the epinephrine and that tends to be released, and other hormones that can damage the tissues rather, but cortisol kind of helps to relieve that. But all of those hormones are going to be released at once to kind of to help the body function in response to a stressful event. And so as the body continues to release from that stressful event, and it could be triggers, right? Could be triggers that remind you of said trauma, just, and it just keeps building, it keeps building, and it keeps building, and it keeps building. And why that is so important is that in order to relieve that stress response, our mind is gonna tie, okay, well, I was stressed, so in response to the stressful event, food is going to comfort me, right? And that's because our body is constantly telling us, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. Feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me, right? So those are just things to just be mindful of with cortisol and stress management. So document what are some of the things that you're really stressing you, whether it be your job, whether it be a previous relationship, whether it be an abusive relationship, any unresolved trauma, maybe it's, financial, maybe it's children, spousal, any of those things. We gotta list those things out. You have to list out all your stressors. Like before you get into a food journal, list out and journal what all your stressors are. In addition to that, it's important to, in those stressors, to seek professional counseling, whether it be God directing you in the direction of a professional talk therapy or anything of that nature, or whether God is directing you into a different space, a much more spiritual space, a church home, Bible study, that type of thing. So those are just things that definitely aid with stress management, but also, it's important that I set too, boundaries, right? When things really bother you, when things trigger you, boundaries, I'll give you one example. Boundaries for me says, I don't do work after a certain time of day. Like really, and now that it's the summertime and, I'm not in the office, I really want to relish and spend the time just relaxing. But when the school year starts, I really don't want to be emailed after 9 p.m. at night, Sunday through Friday. Okay. Because if it's after 9 o'clock, then I'm asleep. Like those are the boundaries I set for myself. Also, I have to work out. I have to have, monitor my macronutrients, primarily my protein. I have to have those things because if I don't have those things, I feel like my stress levels will be over the top, releasing cortisol and putting me back to square one. You know what I'm saying? Because I promise you, like, I know that a lot of us are trying to get into supplementation with managing high cortisol. I promise you, if you just get you a solid 7 hours of sleep, okay, and just really scale back on the stress, that's the first thing that will help with emotional eating. Now let's talk about the food part. With emotional eating, yeah, sometimes we tend to grab the sweet stuff. I like the sweet stuff. But, we can do this, right? We can do this. Don't overcomplicate it, okay? So when you are going to your snacks, think about your 3 macronutrients, all right? Your proteins, your carbs, your fats, okay? And get really friendly and get to know a food label. Okay, so reading your food label is super important with emotional eating, right? So you want to ask yourself a few questions with that. When you are grabbing something to eat, you want to ask yourself, okay, how much of this can fit into my macronutrients for the day of what I need? Like I said, I'm not going to overcomplicate it here. I'm going to make it real easy, okay? So think about, for every one gram of protein, it is 4 calories? 9 calories. 4 calories, 9 calories. I believe it's 4. Yes, 4. Same thing with fats. For every 1 gram of fat, it is 4 calories. Now, carbs are different. Carbs, for every 1 gram of carbs, it's 9 calories, right? I think I got that right. I may have got that mixed up, but I believe I got that right. And so just think about, okay, so for every 1 gram of protein in this, I know I need to essentially kind of go into that, basically up that into nine times of the calories, right? And so, like I said, I'm not going to overcomplicate this because it is a little bit of formula, but and no, I'm not encouraging over consumerism. Y'all don't need to buy the scales and all this other stuff, okay? The only thing that I encourage you to do with emotional eating is to get familiar with your labels and get familiar with your macronutrients, okay? Right now, don't worry about what vitamins are in there, and only until you get comfortable with knowing your macronutrients, right? And so once you get comfortable with your macronutrients, when you get the urge to get stressed, right, that'll be your go-to. You can ask yourself, like, man, how much am I getting of my macronutrients? What's the percentage of macronutrients I'm getting in this particular snack that I'm reaching for in a stressful moment, right? So that helps to really know, get to know your label and see where your macros fall in. Remember, protein, carbs, and fats, okay? Remember those 3 things, especially when you're snacking. Super important. My bad. It's fat that's 9 calories. 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. And your carbs and your proteins are 1 gram of those are 4 calories. My bad. I had to look it up real quick. But one thing that, like I said, just keep those in mind, keep those numbers in mind when you're trying to figure out, okay, how many grams of this fits in my macronutrients for today. Okay. So like I said, there's a whole long formula, but we ain't going to get into that formula today. And once you get comfortable, ultimately, before you get comfortable reading the other parts of the food label, then you can be able to determine what other minerals and vitamins from food do you need in addition to your macronutrients, right? So, think about the carbohydrate parts, consuming fiber, right? Fiber really helps with essentially keeping us full, right? And then when you get down to your fats, knowing the differences between your unsaturated and your saturated and your trans fats, right? And then when you get to your proteins, thinking about, like, a lot of times, first thing off the rip, our proteins really come from a good chunk of animal meat. So then, think about the animal meats that carry a good number of vitamins and minerals for your body. So that's when you really want to break it down, but get comfortable with the macronutrients first. And last point, once you get comfortable with your macronutrients, the next thing that helps you succeed past emotional eating is preparing your meals, preparing your snacks too. Okay. So when you prepare your meals, make sure you prepare your snacks as well. So you won't get the urge to want to go to the vending machine and get a snack, or you won't get the urge to go to the corner store and get a snack. I was guilty of that. I think the best thing I could have ever done, even though they built 2 convenience stores since, but the best thing I could have ever done is I used to live across the street from a gas station when I first relocated to Kentucky. Worst thing ever, okay? But I live a little further from one now, so that means a little bit more effort has to go into me going to said gas station. But, make a grocery list. Like, I don't permit soda in my house, okay? I really don't even permit, like, Little Debbie's and oatmeal cream pies, those things that I know that I can devour, like Oreos happen every now and again. Ice cream happens every now and again. If I say to myself, if it's going to be something sweet, I have to bake it. And of course, that is multiple supplies and multiple things and and a lot of time spent on trying to bake something sweet. But of course, it's worth the reward. Hey, I burn calories trying to make this thing. So those are probably some really good tips to recommend with managing emotional eating. Just plan ahead, know your macros, and know your stressors. Like I said, with those knowing your stressors, definitely think about the amount of sleep you get in. And then really figure out ask yourself, well, what is keeping me from going to sleep? I promise y'all, let me tell y'all, the best thing that I recently did has helped me sleep through the night. Recently, I used to Now, this might be my own trauma. Ever since losing my mom, I used to always really talk to her before I go to bed. So when I lost her, it took me a minute to get used to the transition. And so with that transition, I had to turn on music. Like, and I always listen to music all the time. I love it. I love listening to music, but I had to turn it off at night. I had to completely turn it off at night. All sound, all noise. Y'all, that has been probably the most relaxing, most peaceful sleep I have had ever since. Like, I mean, I'm not just sleeping like before I was going to sleep and then waking up in the middle of the night. This time, no, I'm sleeping all night. It is so refreshing. My workouts feel good. I feel so refreshed as a result. So just some tips and some pointers from your personal trainer / nutritional coach. If you desire to, work out a plan with me, just let me know. Just drop me a message. Hope you have a great day.